This is going to be your guide to using Typhlosion in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So let's see what we have to work with. 109 special attack, 100 speed. That got power crept generations ago, let alone in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, where we have a 100 speed legendary Pokemon with 135 special attack, and it also reduces the opponent's special defense and has like crazy damage multipliers with Terastallization. And the crazy thing is, Chi-Yu isn't even a good Pokemon. We have Rule Set C out there, and we can see that people don't want to bring it because 100 speed, just too much of a liability, even with like this crazy bulk meta. We can also throw out like one-hit KOs on the overheat. If it gets outsped, it's just a free KO, especially against physical attackers. It has more like special bulk, but it's mostly just like fast physical Pokemon or Pokemon like the Iron Bundle that have super effective hits against it. And then there's just a lot of bulk water out there. So somehow Chi-Yu isn't even finding success. So how is Typhlosion expected to work? Well, it does have a few things going for it. We got Flash Fire. You're hit by a fire type move, it's immunity, and then you also get 50% damage on fire type hits. So in a weird way, you almost have like this baiting play to where like you switch in Typhlosion to the Chi-Yu. If Chi-Yu is choiced, it doesn't matter because now it can't hit you with anything that it's locked into on the fire type hits. So the 120 special defense doesn't matter. It either just has to get KO'd or switch in, but the Pokemon switching in is going to get 2-hit KO'd by everything, even if it's a water type move. Because now, or not a water type move, a water type Pokemon, because 50% bonus damage on the Eruption, potential Terra Fire, that's just going to nuke everything. So, Typhlosion's kind of like Chi-Yu. Is it though? And like, that's the thing, like, okay, if Chi-Yu's so scary, then why have we not seen Typhlosion around for so long, like pre-power creep, where it kind of does the same thing, especially when Flash Fired. So let's actually look at the damage calculation and comparison here. So, Silvally, this is our damage analog. If you're actually like one-shotting a Silvally, you're one-shotting a lot of other Pokemon as well. Overheat from the Chi-Yu, modest specs is going to be crazy amounts of damage. Typhlosion, finding the KO. So we have specs timid, and the reason why we're doing that is because it gets really weird. Like, you need to be faster than everything. So if you get outsped, your eruption damage gets cut, and then you're in a pretty bad place. But there's a weird interaction between 90 base speed and 100 base speed that beneficial speed 90 outspeeds. My foot's in the way there we go. So like 156 speed versus the 152 if we're running modest, which means we do need to go timid in most situations. Now, it's not like Lucario's in the meta or anything, but if a lot of Chi-Yu or slower than 100 speed Pokemon are running their offensive as well, then at least Typhlosion's guaranteeing the outspeed and then wrecking crazy amounts of damage. So we are losing a little bit in the damage comparison on the Eruption. Like if we add in the modest nature, it's not as powerful, but it's still one of those things where we have a lot of damage. And then like Terra Fire adds something into this, or if we also have the Flash Fire upgrade, then we get that 50% damage and it looks the same. So boom, Flash Fire, boom, activated. It's the same Pokemon, which is kind of crazy. Also, Chi-Yu, more physically frail, but like 55, 120, not too much different. But like we talked about, like if you're just an 80 Pokemon, this is a free neutral KO into most things that are aiming to like KO Silvally. So high base power, stab move, choiced, just KOs Typhlosion, which means like you need to be faster and you need to remove the threat with Eruption. But even without Flash Fire, like you KO things, but you have to be faster on that 100 speed with choice specs. But the game has kind of slowed down. But then like weird interactions of Paradox Pokemon, and then the other one, Chin Pao, now adding more speed into the game. So like the interactions do get weird when trying to break down. But if you're wall breaking on Typhlosion, you're in a good spot. But even then, that's like never manifested inside of Pokemon, even with these weird stat comparisons, and it gets even weirder. So one thing that's happened with recent generations, mostly Generation 8 and especially Generation 9, is like this retroactive look at Pokemon, where the more you look back, the more you realize like how unoptimized things were in Generation 7, 6, 5, and so on, and also just like how obvious it is to think about the game, or also just the state of power creep making things feel weird. So Oko meta might have always existed. Taunt meta and Encore meta might have always existed, but it takes until like mid-Generation 8 and then Generation 9 for this to be like a major thing that ends up happening because people are just playing so poorly. And when we look at this, it's like, what about this interaction? We have Typhlosion, super effective hit, not KOing a Pokemon. You know, your Scarf Typhlosion in Generation 6, you tag something super with a Shadow Ball, and it doesn't go down. That's kind of like mind-breaking back in the day. You're thinking, like, a super effective hit needs to KO in modern Pokemon, but back then it was kind of like, if it doesn't, we still got a good hit. So that's also why we were seeing, like, these weird things where, like, yeah, super hit was survivable in many cases, many more cases back in the day. So Typhlosion doesn't really get anything out of that, where it's like, yeah, it has extra coverage on the extra sensory on the Shadow Ball, but that low base power into the low special attack means it doesn't matter. Even Modest, like, Modest Scarf is going to outspeed Dragapult, more speed creep, kind of the fastest thing you have to worry about. So you do this, and then you don't get really any reward. And if you go something weird like Terra Ghost, cool, you find the KO, and I don't have, like, Terra Fire boosting, you're Scarf locked into a 109, now just stab neutral shadow, like 80 base power move in a lot of situations. And that also brings in another weird thing where we could just run the Terra Blast instead for effectively the same effect. I don't know if that counts as language or grammar or commentary, but I'm going to stick with it. And then you can just go Terra Blast anyways on a better typing. So, like, Terra onto a sub-typing, technically viable, but, like, the result is you're KOing uninvested 90-ish 75s, like 85, 80 something, you know? It's like, alright, that's what you need while also locking, while also needing the super effective hit to begin with. And this also exposes further power creep in Dragapult just being one of the worst Pokemon out there, and that's because 120 attack, that's pretty good, but it doesn't have any coverage to back it up, and then 100 special attack, that's worse than Typhlosion. So you're kind of seeing, like, these same interactions to where it's like, okay, you do the hit, and then you don't get anything out of it, and now you're just susceptible to a super effective hit, or mostly the opponent setting up on you, and then it's just a bad time. So the speed doesn't really matter when everything is bulky, setting up, or just hitting crazy amounts of damage at slower speeds. And then that's also why we're finding room for, like, these wall-breaking Pokemon to exist better inside of Generation 9, and then, like, Chi-Yu and Typhlosion not finding the success that you would maybe expect out of it. So here's kind of like the idea behind Scarf coverage Typhlosion, where it's like, alright, we're just the anti-sweeper, and we're pretty good at it. You know, we switch into a Fire-type move, and now we're charged up and just, like, hard winning on Eruption into Frail Pokemon. But eventually, a Frail Pokemon is not going to hit the field, and then Typhlosion is useless. It's either going to have to sack, or it's going to have to switch, and then you're giving the bulky Pokemon a free setup turn, and that could just be game on the spot, as we've seen many times, like a really bad Dragon Dance at the wrong time. Like, what if they bring in a Haxorus, and then you just don't have it anymore? That's kind of weird. Okay, the results are a bit more surprising than I thought, but it's a mix of, like, Identity Crisis, and you're not going to get perfectly set up on the Typhlosion. So, no Flash Fire means, yeah, it's not really working out. If we're Scarf, like I said, it's for, like, this other coverage, so we're not going to be Terrifier. But if we are, and we have everything go right, then we do have the one-hit KO, if we're still at full health, onto a resisted hit. So that's what I mean, like, you find Chi-Yu levels of power in this Pokemon on higher base power with the Eruption. That's kind of neat. But it takes so much. Like, you have to dedicate your Terra with the right Terra type into the Flash Fire setup. That's on Choice Scarf even, so now you're outspeeding everything and still fine. Now, Focus Sash does make this sketchy because Modest Scarf is what you want, because if you're running Timid Scarf, then you don't have any damage. That could be very problematic. But then, like, okay, any Focus Sash Pokemon just kind of runs you over, so it sets up a Dragon Dance, and then it can hit you with an Earthquake, and you lose the game. So it's one of those ideas that looks really good, but then in practice, you're going to have the wrong moveset 90% of the time, and they're going to bring, like, the 5% moveset that hard counters you every time, and it's just not going to line up and make sense. But, like, it is something to throw out there, and then the problem is, like, I don't know what's better. Do you try to run it over with choice specs, wall breaking, 100 speed coverage, like a Chi-Yu, if you get that Flash Fire? Well, then you just win the game on choice specs, Eruption, Terra Fire, unless there's something faster than you. But if you can do the same thing on Scarf, then you're going to kind of be in a winning position where it's like Flash Fire, Terra Fire, Eruption on Scarf. Modest outspeeds everything and then still finds the KOs. But there might be a better situation where, like, if you just had the coverage or the different Terra Blast, where it's like, yeah, Terra Ice does wild things for your coverage. Maybe not. Like, into Typhlosion, it's kind of weird because you need something to deal with water-type Pokemon. It's like, Terra Grass, also an interesting option. But as we saw, unless it's a Terra super effective hit, it doesn't matter. So like this coverage doesn't even exist on Typhlosion, unless like, yeah, you are finishing off a super effective hit, but no super effective hit, and then you're just tickling the opponent. And if you don't have like the super anyways, then like, yeah, you're just in a really bad spot. So it's like, you have to pump the Eruption into Terra Fire and then make sure you're outspeeding everything to win, or else it's bad. And I've always been a fan of Blast Burn, or like, you know, just Hyper Beam style moves to where if Typhlosion takes a hit, like, you know, it's down to 20%, Eruption's useless. So you can switch out potentially safely. And then if Typhlosion comes back in, well, you have your Eruption again on this Blast Burn just one more time, and that could be what decides the game because you need that damage to tip it over. Now, if you're recovering and the opponent kind of gets a chance to set up, that's bad, but it seems like you were in a game-losing state anyways. Then, like, yeah, what do you do with Shadow Ball Extrasensory? Not much. What do you do with, like, Shadow Ball Terra Blast? You need it, like, the opponent's team has to, like, perfectly line up to get hit and run by super effective Scarf hits or run over by Eruption. And I guess, like, maybe you can find it. Maybe if your team, like, the thing about Typhlosion, like, maybe if your team is super weak to fire and you have, like, everything else covered and the metagame is very predictable to where you can, like, easily determine choice specs over Scarf, then Typhlosion could be very successful. But outside of that, again, you can just kind of say, like, the numbers aren't great neutrally, and you're going to have you're going to pick wrong. Because that's the nature of Pokemon, so I don't know. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.